Parmalat Everfresh in its new Easy Pour pack.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is eXpresso on SABC3. Now, last week we traced the origins of coffee from its discovery in ancient Ethiopia up until its arrival and importance in Yemen. This week, as part of the history, we learn how this journey continued with the Ottoman Empire and its arrival in Vienna. And connected to this, we're learning about the French press. And here to tell us more, we're joined by David Donde of Truth Coffee here in Cape Town, as well as Jose Velandi, the 2008 SA Barista champion. Good morning, guys. Welcome to eXpresso.
Okay.
Where do we start? And give us some more history.
We're going to start by grinding some coffee.
Okay.
Coffee's always about freshly ground. And if you haven't got one of these fancy machines at home, it's a great way to do things.
This in my kitchen.
Well, what about one of these?
That's
so we can grind away. It takes a little more time, a little more work, but Jose's going to do some over there for us.
There we go.
Now, while he's doing that and preparing, I'm going to talk a little bit about it and we'll cover the history as well.
I love that smell of fresh coffee.
Well, that's the whole thing. The whole promise for me is, can coffee deliver in the cup on the promise of the aroma of freshly ground coffee?
Yes.
So that's all we're trying to do. So what we're going to do, it's critical that we do a couple of things right. So number one, we're not going to boil water. We're going to go close to boiling, if we can get the kitchen kettle on. And
are you running there?
What we want is that water at about 90 degrees. If it gets hotter than that, what we're going to have to do, we're going to start burning the coffee. And we don't want those burnt flavors. It'll start getting bitter, and that'll make everyone pretty unhappy.
My dad always said you must wait till the kettle's boiled, switched off, wait a few minutes, and then
what we want to do is bring it to about 90 degrees.
Yeah.
So Jose's going to put that in there. Now, rule of thumb is to use about that much coffee in your plunger with your plunger full. The actual rule is 60 grams per litre, but you know, we know nobody's going to do that.
No.
Well, we don't know what size cup you're going to use, and we said, Jose, let's just pour. Let's pour. Let's pour it over. Is that starting to boil now?
It's getting there. Yes, it is.
Somebody technical needs to operate our kettle for us here. So,
would you like me to give you a hand?
Yes, if you can.
Okay, so carry on there.
If you don't have a temperature-controlled kettle, which this one is, one of the best ways you can tell that you're at 90 degrees is either, as you say, boil it, leave it to stand. You lose about 7 degrees for every minute that a kettle stands. The other great way of doing it is if you're boiling and you watch your kettle. I think you've got it working. Magic fingers.
Yes, it's going,
is what you want to do is watch the kettle, take the lid off, and watch the bottom. You know when a kettle starts boiling, you get those little bubbles forming at the bottom. When they get to about the size of a fish eye, about a centimetre or so, that's 90 degrees, and that's what we're after. Hotter than that, we'll boil it. Cooler than that, funny enough, works. The cooler you are, the longer you want to go. Room temperature would take about 18 hours. At 90 degrees, what we're after here is about 3 minutes. Okay.
It's getting there.
Are we getting there? Okay, brilliant. Okay, so
as we're getting there, what else do we need to do? I've got the Parmalat Everfresh Perfect Pour.
We got that. So let's go back a little bit into the history of coffee. So coffee was discovered in Africa and Ethiopia. We covered that last week. And then let's get that going now. Yeah, let's get that going. Josie, do your thing. Okay, so what we're doing is we're wetting it down a little bit.
Why are you doing that?
We're forming an emulsion. We're just making sure that the coffee is nice and evenly wet. And then we start our timer. We've set a timer for 3 minutes.
I've seen my friends do this with a timer, and I always laugh at them for doing it.
It seems ridiculous.
It does.
But it makes the biggest difference. So besides absolutely freshly ground, and we consider freshly ground using within 4 minutes. Yeah. Okay? But look at that nice emulsion that's forming.
I like this
now we're going to top up.
I want one of these.
That is stunning. Yeah, no, we all want one of those. Now, that is a particularly special one with porcelain or ceramic conical burrs, and it just grinds perfectly. We can even go down to Turkish grind on that. Okay, so off we go with that.
Okay, so now you're stirring it.
Yeah.
Why are you stirring it?
Just to make sure that we get more crema, the whole water mixed with the coffee. Just gives a better flavor and the whole smell comes out.
What we're trying to really do is get something called perfect extraction. We want all the flavor in that coffee and no more. Yes. And that's where the timer goes. After those 3 minutes, definitely after 4 minutes. And I'd say rule of thumb, no less than 3 minutes, no more than 4 minutes.
No more than 4 minutes, no less than 3 minutes.
And then grinding is also important. If we grind it too coarse, we're not going to get anything. So what we want with the plunger is as fine as it can go, and we can still get the plunger down relatively easily.
Because this is TV, we're going to jump ahead in time.
we don't
So
even have
future.
to. We've got a minute and a half, and we've got to talk a little bit about coffee.
And we need to do some
And
milk
while
too.
we're there, okay, so what happened is we had this coffee in Yemen, and the Sufis were using it. We went through all of that last week. What happened in about 1863 is we had the Battle of Vienna. And what happened here, the Turks surrounded the city of Vienna, and eventually...
I'm going to pour some of this
in there.
Parmalat Everfresh
Eventually...
milk. There we go. It's perfect pour, and I didn't mess. Yes.
So Jose's going to show an easy way. Let's put a little more milk in there before we go there.
More?
Let's take it to about halfway.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, so the Turks were overcome eventually, and two of the things that were left, that remain from us in culinary history, look at this, how easy it comes up. You don't need a special plunger. A normal coffee plunger will work just fine for that. So what happened, the Turks were defeated, and there was, the rumor is the guy who spied on the Turks and defeated them was rewarded with all this coffee, and the first Viennese coffee house formed from that. But there's another lovely little story that comes from it, which is probably equally untrue, and that is the croissant. These Polish bakers allegedly heard the Turks burrowing underneath and identified it, and he was the rescuer, and the reward were these wonderful little croissants that were bent into the shape of the Turkish emblem. And they celebrated by eating the emblem. So there we have the croissant, and we have the coffee house in Europe. So here we go.
Well, here we go. We're on our...
10 seconds left. We can call that close enough.
Do I push it down?
You can push that down.
Okay, here we go, and I'll just pour it in.
And perfect. And we have a perfect cup of coffee. And I cannot stress enough how worthwhile it is timing it. It transforms the flavour completely.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I might take this outside because Kat is outside getting ready with Nicholas Lowe. You can pour, Jose.
Should we do some froth on top?
Over to you, Kat.
Stay with eXpresso and SABC3.